General Landry, what does a state attorney general do?
The state attorney general is the chief legal officer of the state. In most states, the attorney general plays that particular role. And of course, over the last couple of decades, you've seen the role of attorney generals become more and more important as the federal government has encroached more and more on the state's ability to govern itself. And you've seen attorney generals push back on those particular federalism issues. And so that's what we do here in the state of Louisiana. We're the chief legal officer of the state. We've got a civil division and a criminal division here in Louisiana.
What are two issues that currently your office is working on?
Well, of course, again, we have both a civil and a criminal division. On the criminal side, one of the biggest sections that we have in there is a Medicaid fraud unit that works to help root out corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse in the Medicaid system here in Louisiana. On the civil side, we just created a federalism department. We've got a solicitor general now that's working on important constitutional issues, and of course we defend legislative laws that are challenged by different organizations or people as to the constitutionality of them. And so we've got a plethora of issues that we're working on from a litigation front. Of course, like many other states, we're experiencing both a violent crime epidemic and an opioid epidemic, and those are two probably the most important issues that we're working on right now here in Louisiana.
Well, we had a caller ask about the opioid epidemic in the country, and what exactly is your office doing to combat that?
Well, since we began, we've looked at ways under which we can help to stem that epidemic and that tide. It's a multifaceted approach. It's not going to be one specific silver bullet. I'll tell you a couple of things that we're doing. I inherited a number of legal cases from my predecessor, and as we evaluated them and as they moved through the court system, one of those particular cases we felt was on somewhat of shaky grounds, and we had an opportunity to settle that particular case. Instead of for money, we actually settled it for $1 million worth of naloxone product from the manufacturer. And so we took that product and put together a program that was against Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. So Pfizer agreed to settle and give us that naloxone product, and we then distributed that, made it available to all law enforcement and first responder agencies and organizations in Louisiana. And of course that helps to take people who you find in opioid-induced comas out of that coma, and it's a life-saving drug. So we did that. Then we turned around and we partnered with the American Ambulance Alliance in also providing Narcan, which is made from Ampistar, which is another life-saving drug that helps to relieve the symptoms and take people out of opioid-induced comas. And then we created an educational website called endtheepidemicla.org, under which people can go to find information about addiction, how to look for the signs of addiction, in ways that they can help their loved one who may have been addicted or who may be going through an addiction. And then here lately, we partnered with Blue Cross Blue Shield in trying, and our goal is to try to put a drug prescription take-back box in every parish or equivalent in the rest of the country to a county in every parish here in Louisiana. So we partnered with our sheriff departments and local police departments to put one of those drug take-back boxes, and then we encouraged citizens to clean out their medicine cabinets and bring them to those. And of course, we put those locations on all of our websites at endtheepidemicla.org. And so those were some of the things that we're doing to help prevent and to try to stem the opioid epidemic. And then, of course, we joined 41 other states in a multi-state civil investigation in looking at the conduct of manufacturers and the products that have led to this epidemic.
From your perspective as Attorney General, what's been the effect of New Orleans being a sanctuary city?
Can you repeat that again?
From your perspective as Attorney General, what's been the effect of New Orleans being a sanctuary city?
Well, I think that when you look at cities, and I've looked at the statistics time and time again, those cities that engage in sanctuary city policies see a greater crime rate than cities that don't engage in those particular policies. And really, it's just common sense. When you go out there and you blatantly say that you don't have to, you disregard the law, okay? You allow people into your city who came into the country illegally. It's illegal. We have a process that's put in place if you want to migrate into the country. And then if you just say, look, don't worry, you broke the law, but you can come into our city, you're basically setting the tone for the rest of the citizens out there. Say, listen, there are some laws that are just, you don't have to worry about following. And I think that that continues to breed criminal activity as well, in addition to safe harboring criminal elements. I mean, if you are you run a drug cartel, and certainly a lot of people that you employ in that illegal trade, you send them into the country. You normally don't send them in through the proper process, right? They don't just get a visa. Most of them have a criminal background. They come into the country. They sneak into the country. Where do you send them? You send them into cities that you know safe harbor. Their ability, their identity, and their ability to be caught is diminished. And so New Orleans, I think, by having that particular policy, is only exacerbating the violent crime epidemic that is in that city right now.
And let's hear from Jonathan, who's calling in from New Orleans this morning. Jonathan, you're on the Washington Journal with Jeff Landry.
Mr. Landry, as the Attorney General of a state that is suffering the most from climate change, I'm standing right now in Lower Plaquemines Parish. How do you justify your decision to support President Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord? Aren't you telling the residents of this state, many of them in Republican areas, essentially, I don't care about you, drown?
Well, first of all, just for the record, I live on the coast, and I grew up on the coast. My family has been on the coast for 300 years. I would tell you that the problems that Louisiana faces in regards to this coastal erosion problem is mainly contributed to the Corps of Engineers and the national policy that was designed to protect the Mississippi River in its current state. And that Louisiana's coastal problem has nothing to do with climate change. It has to do with the fact that all of the sediment that runs down the Mississippi River is now being moved off of our shelf. And of course, that's an issue that we absolutely have to address. As someone who represented 75% of the coastal parishes in Louisiana in the U.S. House of Representatives in 2010, in fact, representing Plaquemines Parish as a whole, I would tell you that our coastal problems, again, are contributed to mostly from policies that were implemented by the Corps of Engineers. And so our ability to fix that is going to be to look at what those policies are and how we move that sediment back across Louisiana's coastline.
Now, General Landry, I have to ask you about a recent article in The Advocate about your relationship with Governor Bell Edwards. The headline, Edwards and Landry add new clashes to their long list. What is your relationship with the governor?
Well, look, I think I got a good relationship with all of our statewide elected officials. The governor and I have had a disagreement mostly over the law. I don't disagree with him. He seems to disagree with what the law is and the Constitution here in Louisiana. We've had to go to court on numerous occasions, and it's unfortunate. Each time before we've gone to court, we've sent a correspondence to the governor and explained to the governor and his executive council why we believe that the particular action that they were taking or the position that they were taking was either unconstitutional or contrary to what the statute is. And it's been 4 different times here in Louisiana, and the courts have agreed with us 4 times. I would think that based upon that winning record, we've got a pretty good idea of what the Constitution says here in Louisiana. I'm sure that the governor takes some disagreement to that. But again, if he doesn't like that, he has the ability to work with the legislature to change those particular laws.
Jeff Landry is the Attorney General for the state of Louisiana, and he has been our guest this morning in Baton Rouge on the C-SPAN bus on our 50 Capitals tour. Thank you, sir.